There's a specific formula for every car enthusiast that amounts to the ideal setup. In my case, as with most enthusiasts, it is engine at the front, manual gearbox in the middle, and drive to the rear. So when it came time for me to find my first car, I stuck to that formula in hopes that my dream setup could become a reality. In the price range between 5 and 10,000, an E46 or E39 seemed to be the right choice. I quickly selected the 5 Series over the 3, but narrowing down which 5 is a tricky thing to do. The M5 proved to be a wonderful car, but the ride is quite hard and maintenance costs are simply too high. The 540 is also an amazing car, a real bruiser. However, the V8 proves to be hard to maintain and the gas mileage isn't quite ideal. So I had narrowed it down to the 530, or
this, the 525. Yes, it's not really the fastest thing in the world, but ideally it does match the setup that I was after. Engine at the front, 5-speed manual in the middle, drive to the rear. Ultimately, this sort of is what I was looking for. Granted, it's not an M5, nor is it a 540, but it is a BMW. It is a BMW. Now, there are some really good points about this car that I want to make, and that starts sort of with the engine up front.
the power plant is a 2.5-liter inline-six, producing 189 horsepower and 180 foot-pounds of torque. That's a power-to-weight ratio of 120 brake horsepower per ton, leading on to a 0 to 60 time of 8.1 seconds.
But, and trust me on this, that's enough. The whole thing is set up to be sort of a daily driver, a really luxurious car. It's not necessarily built for sporting credentials. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it is a BMW and it drives like one. You should expect nothing less when you drive this car. It is a BMW. And I have to say, having driven a fair number of other cars before I got this one, this is a pretty good car. I keep saying this over and over, it is not an M5, but it does drive remarkably well. It has all of that intrinsic BMW-ness that we've kind of come to expect. And every time I get behind the wheel, as I'm sort of driving around here, it puts a smile on my face. It really does. It makes me really genuinely happy to be driving this car. There are many other places I'd rather be, frankly, than behind the wheel of this thing. And yes, granted, it isn't a Ferrari or anything like that, but I'm 17, for God's sake. It doesn't have to be a Ferrari. This car, for me, is a wonderful everyday driver. And having driven it around town, I just filled up the tank recently, and I'm getting 20 miles to the gallon. I just filled it up, 20 in town. That's not bad. I can get 30 on the highway if I want to. And for $6,000 to drive a car that is seriously this good, I mean, find another car for me, frankly, that is as good as this one for that kind of money. If you can do it, I'll frankly be amazed. When I looked at this car, I had been looking for BMWs for a long time. I had looked at all kinds of different ones, and you'll read in the post on E39 Source, I looked at an M3 even. I looked at two 530s, a 540, two 540s actually. But ultimately, I am overjoyed with this car. Yes, it's not perfect. It does have some problems. For instance, the thermostat needs to be replaced because it is quite sticky. So that's coming. Of course, as I say that, the check engine light just came on. Part of owning a BMW. But the whole thing still feels great. It is great to drive. It's just a great car. And I can see why these are so hard to find. Go online sometime and look for a 525 with a manual. It's not easy to find. This 525 is especially nice for me, because this is the post-facelift model.
In 2001, BMW decided that it was time to aesthetically update their cars. They did this by adding what would become legendary, the halo headlamps at the front and the LED tail lamps at the rear. As for the interior of the car, BMW decided that the standard 5 Series was aesthetically pleasing and needed very few alterations aside from the steering wheel. The car would remain virtually untouched throughout its life.
If you were to drive this blindfolded, don't do that. But if you were to drive this car blindfolded, you wouldn't be able to tell it's anything less than a really expensive car, because it's just kind of what it feels like. it feels expensive. And for $6,000 to be driving what was a $40,000 car really not that long ago, it's got to be the bargain of the century. Puttering around town in the 525 is pretty easy. It's got a very light clutch, and it does only have 5 speeds, but it drives. It's very easy to drive. I mean, first gear runs out rather quickly, but that said, there's plenty of torque in second and third gear. I mean, it's a car you wouldn't get tired of driving around town. And when you get on the highway, it's still a really good car. I can cruise around at 80 no problem all day. I mean, I haven't taken a long road trip in it yet, seeing as I haven't had it that long, really. But I kind of relish the chance to do that, and hopefully it'll present itself sometime soon. Now, if I were to compare this car to something, ultimately, I sort of think it would be that really sort of happy-go-lucky dog. It's always there to please. It's just sort of really happy all the time. Colt put it best when I would think about how I would like to describe this car. The cars reflect each of our personalities really well. Ryan's M5 definitely reflects his, Colt's 540 reflects his, and this 525 definitely reflects mine. I think it does for Bobby's does too. This one's a little bit different than Bobby's, mostly, because of the transmission. But this is just an easygoing car, and Bobby will definitely vouch for me. These 6-cylinder cars are pretty bulletproof. The engine ran for a really long time. This car has 143,000 miles on, almost 144,000 miles on now. And you really wouldn't be able to tell. The engine is very silky. There's a decent amount of torque all throughout the rev band. Definitely a good amount of low-end torque for driving around town. It's just, the engine in this thing is wonderful. On the road, I look at this car and I sort of think to myself when I get behind those gauges, holy crap, I'm driving a BMW. And that sense still hasn't worn off. It's still, when I walked out today, as a matter of fact, from school, and I saw my car sitting there, I thought, holy crap, that's my car. And I'm very fortunate to have this thing. And I know that. And yes, I am well aware that problems are going to present themselves because it is a BMW and they will be quite expensive when they do. But you can't help but feel it's going to be worth it. This may come to a surprise a lot of you, but originally when I started looking for a car, I was actually looking at getting an E55 AMG. I wanted something that would beat Ryan because, frankly, we are quite competitive. And an E55, at the time, would have done it. It did have more power. But all the reviews said, and I agree with them, the drivability of a BMW is just so much higher than a Mercedes. It's just sort of the way it is. Mercedes is set up to be a luxury car. A BMW is set up to be more sporty and handled in its nature. That's just sort of the way it is. For instance, I'm going around a corner now. The Lexus that's in front of me is braking really heavily, actually. That's quite annoying. I'm going to have to get a different gear here. But ultimately, this car is fun to drive. I relish every minute I get to spend behind the wheel of this thing because it's just a lot of fun. I smile a lot, and sometimes it is easy to get carried away, I will admit that. And I find myself being a much more aggressive driver. But at the same time, it's more of a precision instrument than anything I've driven before. I've driven a pretty fair number of cars, like I said before. But this thing is definitely one of the best cars I've ever driven. Now that said, I am still pretty young, and there are a pretty hefty number of cars I still would like to drive someday. But this thing feels pretty good. I would give it that. It does feel really good. Oh, it's just magnificent. For $6,000, I think we did pretty well here. And if you're looking to get a BMW and you're on the fence about getting an E39, don't be. Yes, they can be a bit tedious in maintenance. But ultimately, for the price you're paying to get a car that is this nice, isn't it worth that?
How to sum up the BMW 525 then? Well, for me, it's sort of the perfect first car. Economical, definitely practical, a lot of fun to drive. It will just get a whole lot better than that. But I know this car and I will have memories that will stretch out greater than the mileage it has on it now, and I look forward to sharing some of those with you here on E39 Source.